Computer. Okay, you probably get a little message there.
Yep.
All right, so let's get started since you only got an hour. So, all right, I'm gonna kick us off. All
Cool.
right, what? Go ahead, Dave.
That
Okay,
comes to me.
let me start. Hey, first of all, Jeff, you remember Dave, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
How are
okay.
Of
you?
course.
How you doing, by the way?
I'm doing good, but we should save that for the podcast.
Let's get it going. Okay, here we
We
go.
won't have
Ready?
anything to talk about.
That's
We
right.
won't have anything to talk about.
Everybody say nothing more. All right, welcome everybody to episode 99 of CycleJerks podcast. We are super excited to have with us a mountain biking legend, one of the goats, Jeff Lenosky. Welcome to the CycleJerks podcast.
Woo
It's awesome
woo.
to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So I've been bouncing around the Jeff Lenosky suite of online opportunities. I've watched some YouTubes. I've been at your on the Trail Boss website. You've got a lot going on, man.
I've been super busy between making Trail Boss videos, doing Trail Boss Academy stuff, traveling around for different group rides, and working with Candade, which is the nonprofit I work with. It's been a pretty busy year already, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at your
Wow.
schedule. You got like stuff lined up for weekend after weekend. I think the next 4 weekends or anyway, you're busy in May, you're busy in
I,
June. Do do you
yeah,
schedule
we had
stuff?
trouble even scheduling this podcast.
I know, right? Yeah. So are you how do you balance the travel with I know you're a family man, you're married, you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Does that ever get to be too much or are you able to balance that?
So there's not a ton of balance going on right now. It's actually pretty tough. Since March, I've been gone nonstop. So some of it's self-imposed because I bought a new van and I've been
Right.
traveling to Richmond where I've been working with the guys to get it built. I made buddies with a couple dudes who started a van company. And I had a van prior to this for the
I
past
love
four
that
years. I,
band. What
I
happened to that band? I loved it. I watched your video over
yeah,
and over again, and I kept telling my wife, "That's the one I want." Why'd you get
Well,
rid of
so
it?
that was when I was dabbling my toes into the van life thing. So I live on the East Coast. Vans aren't super popular. When I got that first van, my kids were still in high school. They were like, "No, don't get a van. You're gonna look like a pedo." I was like, "Listen, if I lived in Colorado or California, I'd be the cool dad." They were
Yeah.
like, "Don't pick us up from school in the van." So I got that first van, and I built that one out myself. And obviously, both of you guys know I travel quite a bit. So in 4 years, I put 140,000 miles on that thing. It was great, but I just wanted to get off before it went off the cliff.
Yeah.
So I started looking into selling it, and I was able to sell that thing for significantly more than I paid for it 4 years ago with 140,000 miles. So that's crazy.
That's
But
crazy.
then on the flip side, then when you go to buy the new one, it's insane as well.
Yeah.
So this new one is a huge, huge, huge purchase. Um, I met a guy who came to one of my Trail Boss Academy clinics in this super sick brand new van, and I started talking to him. He was saying how he's starting a van company and offered to sell me a couple of the transit trails that are coming out. It's like an all-wheel drive Ford Transit. One thing led to another. Couldn't get delivery dates on those, and he was like, "How about the one I had?" And it was sick when I saw it, and it wasn't built out yet.
Mm.
So I had 5,000 miles on it, bought that one from him. And those two guys are like, one of them worked for Tesla. So he's like the electrical master. The other guy has had a carpentry business forever. They built out vans on their own, but they're really, really good craftsmen. And they were 100% open to like letting me design every single part of it. So it's pretty sick because I like designing that stuff. I like starting to build it, but then I'm so busy. I don't have CNC machines and stuff to do
Yeah.
it as perfect as they will. So it's cool. I got to dabble a little bit. Like I
Mhm.
always throw around the Wii when I'm with them, and they're like, "It's not really Wii." Like I'll be like, "Look at the wall we built." It's like
Yeah.
I just designed a little thing, but it's been
Yeah.
pretty awesome. So a lot of the travel in March was traveling down to Richmond to stay there. And and watch it get built. And then you go into Sea Otter. I was out in California for an entire month. And then now with Candate, I work with this nonprofit organization. We try to get volunteers to create change in their communities. So, and it was started by Oscar Blues, which, if you remember, when I was riding for that other bike company, I was sponsored. I was riding for Oscar Blues at the time, and it was their nonprofit. So it's kind of everything that's at the heart and soul of, breweries and stuff like that, music, art. Dale, the owner, was a big mountain biker, so we go into schools, we donate art supplies, we donate musical instruments, and then since I'm a Tread to Trails ambassador, I'm involved with all the bike donations. So this is a really big year because it's our 10-year anniversary. We're on track to give away our 10,000th bike, which is insane. We have a new corporate partner, Yasso, which is like a frozen dessert, like Greek yogurt, healthy dessert company. They're funding 10 bike builds that are going on right now. So that's got me hustling. So I've been traveling a lot, but with the new van, I've been able to bring the family a lot more. So that was part of the reason of getting the new van, was to be able to bring them more.
Mm-hmm.
We hit a dead spot. Like when Jack and Katie were younger than 12, they used to come all the time. And then they got into high school and sports and stuff like that, and it just wasn't possible for them to travel with me. And now they're in college. Max is around, my youngest. He's able to travel. So I'm California trip. My wife and Max came for 10 days. So I'm trying to bring them around a lot more. So at least if I'm traveling, I have them.
Yeah. So
trying to create that balance.
Yeah, right.
There's no balance of being in New Jersey, but as long as I have some familiar faces around me, you feel more balanced.
Yeah. And especially
tying this all together, that's the van thing. Like you're going to Sea Otter, you don't jump on a plane, you throw the family in a van, which is totally cool. Like totally and drive cross country and hit some stops along the way. That's the plan.
Well, I drove across the country. I do the heavy lifting.
Okay.
They flying for the cool part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I got to drive through Oklahoma, Arkansas, all these boring states. And then when I got to Albuquerque, they flew in and we went to Albuquerque, Sedona, Joshua Tree, California. And then I drove back through Kansas and, Iowa, all those places while they flew home. So
we love you a little bit, Dad, but not a lot.
Yeah.
It might be good for everybody's relationship to not do that drive together.
Yeah, totally.
No matter how much you love each other.
Drive. I spent a week on the road, then with me for 10 days. I'm super excited to see. Then we all get sick of each other, and then we cool off. I drive back across the country.
Yeah. Well, that's smart that they fly in. That would be, I think. Yeah, I'd appreciate that as a family member. Yeah, you drive.
Yeah,
I'll see you over there.
Yeah, my wife still has a job. Max is still at school, so it's not unlimited time. So
right.
So you're getting your son out of college right now. Where are you right now?
Yeah, so
and what kind of hotel has a surfboard on the wall?
The kind of hotel that's down the street from a college that's on the coast. So he goes to the University of Rhode Island. And it's in Kingston, which is near like Newport and all that. So it's kind of cool. Like these kids have all their rental properties where they stay, all the off-campus housing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big beach community, so they get these really cool houses from Labor Day till Memorial Day. So when I was in college, like you just get a house all year round, and it wasn't a resort community. Here they're a resort community, so they can make way more money Memorial Day to Labor Day. So in Labor Day, out Memorial Day, and then there's summer rentals. So the last years he's been a junior and senior, he's had awesome houses, a couple blocks from the beach. It's insane. But they're reasonable, definitely different than going to school in the middle of Pennsylvania like I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So moving him out, my daughter coincidentally also goes to a school near the coast. She's in Monmouth University, which is in New Jersey. And she chose that school. She did competition cheer for a really long time. So like a world level competition cheer team, similar commitment to what I did with bikes. She was doing with cheer, and that school is a great school, and it happened to be pretty close to where she was cheering. So her freshman year of college, she had one more year of eligibility. So that definitely influenced her choosing that school because of the close proximity to the gym. But it's also near Asbury Park, where there's a big music scene. Bruce Springsteen was from there and whatever. So it was cool to go there for the reason that she did, but she loves it now, and there's cool stuff to do and everything. So both of them are on the coast.
Well, I'll tell you, you're kind of rolling the dice with these kids at these colleges right by the beach. I had a buddy of mine, he went to San Diego State for about 9 months, and then he got thrown out. And then he had to reload.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the thing is with colleges on the coast, on the East Coast, school year, it's freaking freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like Jack's on the coast here in Rhode Island, and it's beautiful right now because it's May, but in December, I would not want to be whipping freezing water. Cold wind.
That's why the rents are so cheap in December, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah. So Jeff, you've been a pro mountain bike rider since 1993, right? I mean, we're talking, that's 30 years if I have my math right.
Yeah, let me do the math real quick in my head. Holy shit, that's 30 years. It's absolutely insane.
This is probably how old are you?
Just turned 52.
Yeah. So does it ever like one thing that when I was thinking about this is like how much the sport has changed in the time that you've been professional. And from the early, like there's a lot of good early clips of your career. I don't know if it's from 93, but early stuff. And you could just see like the bikes, the equipment, everything. We know this because we live this stuff. Everything's just radically different. There was a period where the automotive industry was really invested in mountain biking. And they were sponsoring teams and everybody had free cars. And it was kind of like this, I think it's like the golden age, right? That's when the money was kind of at the peak or what it perceived from the outside. I wasn't getting any of that money, but but you could just see that there was, Subaru, Volvo, there were a bunch of Acura, all kinds of different companies were investing in mountain biking. And so have you been able to, has there been a steady arc with your income from mountain biking, or was there actually like a big peak and then it was like, whoa, I got to reload and shuffle things around and change my focus a little bit if I'm going to keep doing this?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think, if you're familiar with my career, I started out doing mountain bike trials. Yeah. So mountain bike trials, when I first started, wasn't super popular. So I think one of the things that has led to the longevity that I've been able to have is the fact that when I got started, I was doing a sport that nobody really knew they needed to see. And I read this book early on called Ice to Eskimos. And it was about the New Jersey Devils and how to sell a hockey team that like nobody cared about the New Jersey Devils. And they just figured out ways to make it. I'm sorry, it wasn't about the Devils. It was about the Nets, the New Jersey Nets. And they realized nobody wanted to see the Nets. But if you sold Michael Jordan or sold Magic Johnson coming to town, then you made it a compelling argument and stuff like that. So anyway, the point is I did mountain bike trials. Back then, if you threw your leg over a cross-country bike or a downhill bike and got on the podium, it was instant paycheck. Yeah. You didn't really need to do anything. So I feel like a lot of those riders, they never had to be super mindful of marketing themselves because sport marketed them for them. With mountain bike trials, we had to figure out a way to approach Schwinnitz and show them why they needed somebody like myself. Because prior to me doing it, in the U.S. there was Hans Ray and Libor Karas. Yep. Two European guys. And other than that, there were no sponsored American riders to any large degree. There was another guy, Mark Brooks. So two of us were kind of the first two people to do that, but Mark was more of a competition rider. I grew up watching freestyle demos. I just remember being a kid, seeing freestyle teams come to town, seeing the impact that they had on my life, and then also skateboard demos and stuff like that. So I approached it right from the get-go of realizing like competition was cool, it was good to validate yourself. But where the other riders thought like, hey, I got first place in a trials event, that finish line, I looked at it from the perspective of like, that's the starting line. Like I need to try to win that event and then figure out a way to make people care. And making people care back then was doing demos in parking lots. You know, this was pre-YouTube, pre everything. So when I used to have a portable trial show and I would travel around and go to different retailers or events and whatever, and you show up. And that was what was really attractive to the sponsors. You know, obviously you needed to be good to win all the trials events in the world. You wouldn't get in mountain bike action or, you know, any of those things once in a while, like very, very, very rarely.
Yeah.
The demos were where it was at. So learning to market myself helped. And then as the sport has changed, I've always come at it from a kind of DIY, market it yourself kind of guy. So, you know, it went from the live trials, demonstrations, and competitions to the mountain bike video parts and trials, demonstrations. And then enduro got kind of, and it's also helped. I've had bike ADD and I genuinely love every discipline of mountain biking. So then I went through like my enduro riding phase. And then people started to have familiarity with me from doing those enduro races. So then I would start travel around to do those demos again. And people recognize me from actually mountain biking a little bit. And then they'd start to say, hey, I got this trail that's possible. You should see if you can. I haven't seen anybody ride this trail. And it's like, that was right in the era of like when YouTube was starting. And I was like, well, that would make a cool YouTube series, like travel around, try to ride those trails.
Yeah.
So it turned into YouTube. And then mountain bike festivals are huge now. And I've always loved engaging with people and riding and stuff. So then you start doing big group rides and that's valuable to sponsor. So I would say that my uh my salary, whatever, has been pretty consistent over the years. You know, obviously, well, I don't know. It's probably relative to the fact like you could make X amount of dollars a 27-year-old with no kids riding for Toyota with a free car. It might be the same amount of money, but it just goes further than when you're 50 with two kids in college.
Yeah.
So the compensation has been pretty consistent, thankfully. But a lot of that has to do with like one area of revenue dries up and you create a new one, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that it's interesting to get that perspective from you about the freestyle and the skateboard shows, because that's one of the things that I always loved about your show. Because as a kid, I did the same. I went, and we even at one point we had a team called Hippotrick and we did shows. But I remember still as a little kid going to Hank and Frank in Oakland in the middle of the hood on East 14th, and they have Team Skyway would be there or Team Horror would be there. And we would convince my parents to drag me out there and we'd go watch these freestyle shows. And they were so exciting. And, you know, so, and your shows definitely have that same element to them, you know, with the bunny hopping or, you know, I mean, I even did at one point in Alameda, you had me lay underneath this box and spread my legs. Thank you. And he just launched off and landed right between my legs. And it was pretty precarious, but you didn't hit me. So that was good. I think you might have tapped my head with your front tire
your
or
hat.
something. Yeah. So
so think about this. You grew up in California going to Hank and Frank's, which was a place that I only saw in magazines.
Yeah.
I saw Hank and Frank ads all the time. And that was literally, it felt like it was around the world for me. I'm in New Jersey. You didn't see BMXers at all until those shows came to time. So that literally did change my life. Like when you see Eddie Fiola or, you know, Seppi Mays and Diz Hicks come to town, that's all you would think about for the entire year. And then years later, I started doing mountain bike trials. I would see Hans do things at big conventions, but Hans never really had like a portable show like I did. And I started thinking like, man, that would be the coolest thing ever. I remember when I would see those guys come to town, if I ever had the opportunity to do that, it would be like the sickest thing ever. So that was one of the huge reasons why I wanted to do trial demos.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when you came to my shop, you came twice. And I
Yep.
think one time you came and you didn't have anything. You kind of made it up with there. And then the next time you came with your whole setup. If
Yeah.
my
So
memory serves me.
I think one time I did my usual fly in and build what I could build for a show in one day. The
Yeah.
second time I did your shop, I'd been in town, which is something I just wrapped up a couple weeks ago. I don't do a ton of trials demos anymore, but I do a couple weeks for the Sea Otter, where we do this outreach program, and we go to 15, 16 schools in the week prior, 2 weeks prior, leading up to the Sea Otter, and just try to get the kids excited about mountain biking, get them to come out to the Sea Otter, et cetera, et cetera. So for that, I do build a significantly more amount of obstacles, and I came to your shop then,
Yeah.
because that was
Yeah.
something I was using for a couple of weeks versus, 2 shows on a Saturday.
Right.
And I remember doing that. I was on the grass right in front of your shop, and
Oh,
we filled
Yeah.
up that whole entire grass area. That was awesome.
yeah. Yeah. And the biggest turn into your point about people when we come into town. I mean, I think we had close to 100 people show up to watch that. So and people still were talking about it forever. So it's incredible.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was super fun.
That's one of the
YouTube
things.
killed that.
YouTube. Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
No,
Like everybody
go
sees
anymore,
stuff
right?
on YouTube, and yeah, like the live trials demonstration isn't as impactful anymore because people are, they're just so jaded. You see everything on YouTube all the time, and also just videos and everything. So YouTube did have a big part, I think, in like kind of minimizing the impact of that. But what it has done, then, like I said, I've always been able to pivot in my career. So now, because people see YouTube all the time, going and doing a demo in a parking lot isn't what it used to be. But you create this bond with those fans. And now when people watch you on YouTube, they feel like they know you because there's so much time talking and standing in front of the camera and whatever, that now they're super willing to come out and do group rides with you. And that's awesome, because when you do a trials demo, I've done it myself. You stand in the audience and you're like, I could do that. That doesn't look that hard. I could do that. And then you go for a group ride and people are like, son of a bitch, this guy's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I still I remember them, the guys coming back. Now there were some pretty good mountain bikers in our shop, and they told us, I didn't get to go, but they told me that you were going down a trail and there was a tree across it, and they were like, all the guys were like, oh fuck, right? Okay, and they start to dismount. You jumped up onto the log and then jumped over it, and they came back and they're just
Nice.
shaking their head like, what the hell?
Nice.
I don't think we got anybody on the trail that day to do it.
No, yeah,
It was a pretty big obstacle. Yeah.
for most people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that
But
was
then,
one of the things that surprised me about working with Jeff. Jeff and I worked for the same company for a lot of years and did a lot of events together. And but I was always amazed, or I shouldn't say always, but when you first came and we did our first event, and the amount of construction, like you come with the tool belt and the screw guns, and we're
Yeah.
you're building your obstacles. I mean, I hadn't really thought about like, how's this guy actually do the thing? And then I was just kind of surprised that's part of the deal, right? You got to build your own obstacles.
Yeah. So on the East Coast, I used to have a truck and trailer, and I had, similar to a freestyle show, I had the trailer loaded up with the obstacles and the sound system and everything, and the presentation was awesome.
Yeah.
But when I was riding for Giant and we would do those pop-up demos, could be California one weekend, could be Texas the next, and New Jersey the next, there wasn't the opportunity to drive around like that and get it. So we started to have to fly in, build what you could build in a couple days, or in a day, and do the demo. And that kind of started to be one of the big grinds, and why that, relationships just started to wear on the both of us. You're riding for a company. YouTube is super popular. I think to the average person, like, you would see that I'm riding on what I was able to bust my ass and build in a day.
Yeah.
But the average person doesn't realize that. Like, they don't realize that you just flew in from the last thing and you have 6 hours to go to Home Depot, buy some stuff, put something together in the parking lot and then do a demo the next day. So
Yeah.
they don't realize that that's not your best foot forward.
Yeah.
So it was entertaining, but it did get to the point where you're like, is this demo really give me the best opportunity to present myself in the best light possible? Or I just doing what I throw together, because as soon as I'm done at Dave's, I got to tear the stuff down and get on a plane and go to the next spot and do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of really started to wear on me. And then YouTube was getting really popular. I started to find that to be pretty rewarding, because then instead of what I can throw together in 6 hours before, the night before at a bike shop, I can go to Tucson, Arizona and ride some awesome mountain bike trail and put that on the internet and bring everybody along for the ride. And they can see a, really cool trail. You're not limited to what you can do at a bike shop parking lot.
Yeah.
But interestingly, though, in watching some of the Trail Boss videos, they're not, how should I say, mutually exclusive. I mean, it seems like you're able to do a lot of the shit on those videos because you're pretty good at like bunny hopping and jumping from one thing to the other. Like, I mean, I look at you coming up on some of these rocks and I'm like, okay, dismount, lift my bike, climb up there. And you're somehow jumping from one rock to the next. And so it seems like everything's a trail to you. It doesn't, there's like just obstacles aren't an issue, And so it seems like that experience must have played well. The trials experience, I guess.
Absolutely. I definitely think that having the trials background and then also always enjoying other disciplines of mountain biking or just cycling in general has also lent itself to the career longevity.
Yeah.
If I was a downhill racer at 52, I wouldn't really have any real significance or impact or something. Or if I was a 52-year-old dirt jumper, like, I'm not going to set the world on fire. But with trials, it's always been about control and technique and this skill set that if you take the time to develop it, it obviously you can reap what you've sown for a really long time. It's
if
trials and yeah, or any trial. I mean, I feel like trials riders in general tend to have a little bit more longevity because it's this thing to learn with a really steep learning curve at the beginning that a lot of people don't want to take time to do. But then when you do, you have this very unique skill set. And I think that's what it is. I have a pretty broad skill set, but obviously the core of it is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of people that either want to or can ride the way like Hans rides or I ride or, different Kenny Belay. Like, there's not a ton of people that have taken the time to do that. And if you do that, then you're in this unique situation where you can do kind of cool stuff. But if my YouTube channel was about going down the hill as fast as you can, there's obviously 20-year-old dudes who could ride down a trail faster than me now. But can they hop a log, or do they want to, or could they do some of the tech stuff? Probably not, because it's in reality is more fun to just blast down a hill going fast.
Right.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Father Time. Since you're in your 50s, I'm in my 50s, Dave's in his 60s. All of us have seen, athletically speaking anyway, better days, right? So for me, like, growing up, I did, as I mentioned, I had that flatland, I did flatland freestyle, I rode ramps, I did race BMX. So I had, when trials became a thing, when I first became aware of trials, they used to have events out at Sand Hill Ranch, and I would go out there and mess around. They had cars that were kind of buried, and you'd hop around different stuff. And so I was kind of exploring that, but I find as I get older now, like, I have glasses, I don't hear so well. And my trail riding is not going so well either, as far as on the big mountain bike, because I've done a lot of things over my lifetime, but I find if I try to go too far back, send it off the big stuff, it usually ends up with me regretting it and on the shelf. So now I'm no longer doing that. Now you're at 52. Obviously your skill set's much more evolved than mine, but do you have trouble maintaining it? Or do you find
definitely
anything
have, I mean, obviously like, you got to stay on it a lot more. And if you do have an injury, it's much harder to come back from, for sure.
Yeah.
but well, so probably since like last October, I made it a mission to like really start lifting more, ride a little bit more, because when COVID hit and stuff like that, I wasn't traveling around as much and stuff. And I wasn't like, I wasn't out of shape or anything, but I wasn't like 100%. And then in September, I was like feeling like freaking Rocky, like going to the gym all the time, riding more than ever. And I was feeling awesome. The thing that sucked is I went to Sedona Mountain Bike Festival, had the dumbest crash ever, and broke my wrist again. So I'd already broken it. And if anybody was listening to this, had gone to Sedona this year, went to Sedona like feeling amazing. And then got there and it snowed the first 3 days. So there was no riding. The Sunday, the riding finally opened up and we went on a group ride, and it was about a half hour into the first group ride. We got to this one spot where there's a really cool scenic spot, and I just decided to do a little drop, like picnic table, something I should be able to do all day long, but it was really windy, and I just figured it wasn't going to affect me anyway because it wasn't that windy. And I got gusted and I fell on my wrist, which I previously broke 7 years ago, and it hurt pretty bad right away. I thought it could be broken. Went to the emergency room in Sedona. They said it wasn't broken and that it should be fine in like a week. And it took 2-3 weeks and it still felt terrible. So then when I was back in New Jersey, I got it x-rayed and it was broken. So it took me probably like 5 or 6 weeks. It had hardware in it and nothing moved, but it had a crack in it. And that took me like 6 or 8 weeks to start to feel better and stuff like that. You do wonder, like, if I was 40, would that fall have broken it? Probably, but you start thinking about it. Or would it have felt better in 3 weeks versus 8 weeks? So I just try to keep the crashing to a minimum. And as long as I'm working out and riding very consistently, it doesn't seem to be a problem. But when you have these little setbacks, like, I'm starting to feel good again, but like that was in March, didn't ride a ton in March. Then you get back on April, you got to build it back up a little bit. So just got to stay on the bike. As long as I stay on the bike, things are good. So when I'm off the bike, then you feel the age a little bit.
But I mean, that's the thing. Everyone says, "Oh, stretch, lift as you get older, do all these things." But if you're on the road, that's got to be a nightmare for you. Trying to, like, if you're traveling so much, that's when I lose fitness, because I'm like, it's hard, right, to juggle that when you're on the road.
It's very hard, yeah. So that's also part of the reason why March was a rough month. I got to Sedona feeling probably the best shape I've been in 5, 6, 7 years. Had a stupid crash and then drove to California. So then you're in the car for a week, not doing a ton. But then I was in California and I was riding a ton and kind of built it back. But yeah, you're totally right. Like some of that driving. So that was also part of the reason getting the new van and stuff like that. Like I want to try to travel with a little bit more intent this year and not just blast around like I used to. That was a big problem also, like 4 or 5 years ago. All I was doing was traveling. All I was doing was going to these different markets, and somebody would be like, "Oh, you're just in San Francisco. How was it? How was the riding?" And it's like, well, I stood behind the bike shop for 6 hours, threw some boxes together, did 2 15-minute demos, got on a plane and flew home. Now I'm trying to, even though I drove across country, I stopped in Knoxville, I stopped in Roanoke, I stopped in, Oklahoma. I make stops and I try to ride. Don't spend 12 hours driving like I used to. I'll spend 6 or 8, get a good ride in that day, try to break it up, because you're totally right. If you can't, I used to be a road warrior. I would literally, when, in 96, 97, when I was riding for Schwinn, it would not be unusual, because I just did a morning show the other day and I was on at 5 a.m. in Austin. And I was saying to my colleague, a girl, I was like, I used to like literally do these morning shows at 5 a.m. and do like a 44-inch bunny hop, like just wake up, probably partying and probably drove from New Jersey to Chicago like 14 hours nonstop, wake up the next morning and buzz out a 44-inch bunny hop. So I'm trying to break those tries up a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's funny what you can get away with when you're younger. I
Oh
had
yeah.
similar lifestyle as a BMX racer. I'd be partying the night before, and then next morning, 8 o'clock, you're on the gate for the, you know, and it's just like when you're young. I mean, I don't know. Either you get away with it, or you don't even realize that you're sabotaging yourself. But one of those two things are true. And but yeah, it seemed like you could just get away with it as a young person. But yeah, now I can't even drink anymore. I don't drink at all. But um,
Yeah. I don't really drink too much.
yeah, Dave's an alcoholic, so I'm just
That's
kidding.
kind of what I say. Is like I give up so much to ride my bike. It's like I'm not giving that up. This.
Yeah, totally.
There are limits to this thing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So
I love
So,
bikes, but not that much.
yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about Candide for a minute, because I think that's
Yeah.
a great part of your story, and it's a way that you're giving back. And so how did that relationship first form?
So the Candid thing came about through a funny angle. So we were at a dinner at Giant, and
Uh-huh.
I had just seen that Oscar Blues, the beer company, Dale's Pale Ale, all that kind of stuff, was sponsoring Nate Hills because that's when YouTube was getting popular. They were sponsoring Nate, and they were sponsoring Nico Malali, and
Yep.
we were sitting around the table just shitting. And I said to Mercedes, she was at the table, I was like, "Man, it would be so cool to have a beer sponsor." And she overheard me, and she's like, "Oh, I'm best friends with Dale." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, I'll put you in contact with them." So she made the connection and sent an email to Dale Katechis, the owner of Oscar Blues at the time, the namesake Dale's Pale Ale and all that, and
Yeah.
made an email introduction. And a week or two went by, and like I got copied on the email, but then nothing ever happened. So I just figured, well, he's a busy dude. Like that's obviously not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then one day I saw in my inbox there was an email back from him, and he was like, "Hey, thanks for the connection. Nice to meet you, Jeff. Big fan." I was like, "What?
Huh?
Dale's a fan of me? What?" So
Uh,
he's always been an avid mountain biker. So I didn't get on the phone with him, but I got on the phone with some marketing people from Oscar Blues, and they had I was still doing a lot of trials demos back then, and they were interested. I was trying to see if they would want to sponsor my YouTube channel, which at the time was not weekly content. I was just doing 6 Trail Boss videos per year. That was like the early era of me doing it. So I just wanted to see if they wanted to sponsor Trail Boss, which they did. But then they were really interested in the mountain bike trials demonstrations because they did a lot of music festivals. So they had a thing that's going on at the time called Burning Can. So they asked me if I wanted to do some activations at Burning Can. So that was the deal when I first started, was doing demos at Burning Can, and they sponsor my YouTube channel. And when I went to that first Burning Can festival, they told me about this nonprofit that they had called Candade, and that was going to be their first bicycle demo. So Candade started 10 years ago when the town of Lyons flooded. So Oscar Blues was founded in Lyons, Colorado. 10 years ago, Lyons got hit with a flood. The whole town kind of, a lot of it got wiped out. So Dale turned off his canning lines and started canning water for relief. And then he also gave some grants to people in the community to get back on their feet. So that was what started Candade. And then that morphed into trying to get volunteers from communities to do change, and help out underprivileged kids in need. So that's how it turned into art instruments or art supplies, musical instruments. And then probably about so bikes were, obviously close to his heart. And he also started Reeb because he was a mountain biker. So the Reeb thing came into play years later. So I went to do that first demonstration for Burning Can. They had this Candide thing going on, and I had been going to different schools and stuff over the years. And when I went, that was like totally in my wheelhouse to do an assembly for the kids and help give away these bikes. And the very first year, they had just bought Huffy bikes online. So I show up for this first bike build. We're going to give away 100 bikes. There's 100 Huffies sitting there, and started talking to the girls. And I was like, how much did you pay for these bikes? And, a couple $100 or $250 each. And I'm like, man, we could do way better than, like, why don't we get them on some Giants?
Yeah.
And, so I figured like I could, they didn't have any industry connections. So I figured I could help out with that. Come back. Sorry.
No worries.
Cleaning lady.
So,
Do you need towels, soap?
Yeah. Do you need to take a break?
No, they just,
okay.
Yes. So, I approached Giant about it actually, and they weren't interested in selling bikes to, okay. So yeah, they weren't even interested in selling the bikes. And we were willing to buy them. So that was kind of when I started to realize like we were going in different directions as a brand and myself. So I had good connections with Kent, who does a lot of private label manufacturing as well. So I introduced them to Kent. We developed like a Candide specific bike colorway. At first it was just a different colorway and graphics and stuff like that. But over the next few years, it turned into a completely custom bike. So if you get one of these Candide bikes, it's just a simple coaster brake 20-inch kid's bike, but it's the only place you can get it is through a Candide donation.
Yeah.
So now I was at the very first donation, and now I'm probably going on 6 years or something like that. Candide's going on 10. We're on track to give away our 10,000th bike. And we have corporate partners. I'm doing a donation next week that was privately funded by just a local cyclist in Erie, PA, who wanted to give back to his community, funded the whole entire thing himself. I did one in January in Florida. So typically they're with companies like Journeys Shoe Store or Yasso, or in Colorado, there's a company called Medtronics, different corporate partners that contribute and then help us make these donations. But there's also a lot of individual funding. So I've done different fundraisers through my channels. Avid mountain bikers have done it. Actually, if you remember 4 years ago or 5 years ago now, in California, my van got broken into.
Yes.
So Dave, that first van that you might have seen, that van got broken into, and I had $27,000 worth of stuff stolen from me. Wow. And all the YouTube comments and stuff were like, "Oh man, you should, try to get insurance, whatever. We'll donate money. We'll give you some money, set up a GoFundMe, whatever." And I was like, well, I don't want to GoFundMe. Like, I have insurance, thank God. So I had insurance. I got it all covered. And then a couple months later, I got my insurance money back, and I was like, you know what? All these people were so offering me money. Why don't we give it to kids? Like, if you're willing to offer it to me, let's put your money where your mouth is and do a fundraiser. Yeah. So I turned it around and flipped it on its head and did a Prime Pays Forward fundraiser. And the premise was, hey, I got robbed for $27,000. I was fine. I had insurance, or my sponsors gave me the equipment back and whatever. But you offered it to me 2 months ago, so let's do it and give it to the kids. Yeah. And we ended up raising $35,000.
Oh man.
For Candide, and gave it all to the bike donations.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, working with Candide is awesome. Like for guys like us that have been in the bike industry for as long as we have, like none of us would have the lives that we have or careers, whatever, if it wasn't for bikes. And yeah. I know for me, my parents bought me my first bike. It wasn't a question where I was going to get it. It just bought me my first bike. They took every opportunity they could to ground me from that bike, but they bought me my first bike. But a lot of these kids that we visit, they're not in the position to have their parents or adults around them buy them bikes. So being able to have this career, literally my entire life was paid for by hard work and bikes, to be able to turn that around and give kids the opportunity, even if it's just the freedom or the confidence that they get riding bikes, or if they turn into a pro bike rider, whatever, like just getting the opportunity to experience it is awesome. It's like my favorite thing that I do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. What now is how does somebody, let's say if you're an underprivileged kid and you have this desire for a bike, is there a way for them to activate a potential canned aid donation, or is it more like these corporations have in their communities, they have this underprivileged areas that they work in? How does that work exactly?
It really varies across the board. So a lot of it has to do with funding, obviously. So whether it's an individual donor that puts something together. So like I'm going to Erie, PA, or I was in Tampa, Florida in January. Obviously, those are going to be there because somebody in the community took the initiative to get a big fundraiser going and create it. So we're obviously going to donate bikes in those areas. So that's how those come about. Some of them, if wink, wink, if somebody like you or Dave or a listener was to go online and make a donation at candidate.org after
Uh-huh.
this podcast, that might go in a general pot that could potentially be anywhere. But when we do it, we typically go in and donate to an entire first grade class or an entire second grade class. So, 60, 70, 100 bikes, something like that. We're getting every single kid on a bike. So that's how some of those happen. And then, for instance, the Yasso Game On Foundation that we're working with right now, that's a food brand. We have 10 donations. They're doing those in markets of like 10 of their big suppliers. So Bentonville, because Walmart's there. We just did Austin because Whole Foods is there. So they want to show their vendors that they're trying to give back to the communities. So we have 10 dates across the country over the next couple months that are in line where they also have partners. So it's gonna, changes every single time.
Yeah.
But then we also, as an organization, have created core cities. So it definitely seems like there's some critical mass to all this stuff. So we have Denver, Colorado, which is close to where Candid was started, Nashville, Hartford, Connecticut, and Austin, Texas are 4 of our core cities right now. And we've just seen that, like, once you start fundraising, it's a lot easier to continue because there's a critical mass. There's other corporations that see what you're doing and they want to get involved. The community talks about it. The news is more inclined to pick up the story, which then helps you get more funding and stuff like that. So identifying those core cities has helped as well.
Yeah. Well, you've always kind of been a one-man band, so to speak, in my mind anyway. I'm sure there's people that help you along the way, but you, part of your show, your presentation is, there's just so many elements to it, and then you do all of it. I remember not only the building of the boxes, but I remember at one point, I don't know if you're still doing this, but you had a headphone and a little microphone, and while you're on the bike, you're talking to everybody, and that worked
Yeah.
out. That worked out really good.
Yeah.
But I've always been curious beyond the live in-person stuff. You're spitting out these YouTubes, and do you have a team that helps you at all? I mean, because you can only fit video so much of yourself, right? A lot of times there's someone there
Yeah.
videoing you doing the event, actually most times. And then what about with
Yeah.
the editing and all that? Is that all you, or do you have somebody that helps you with that?
That's kind of the blessing and the curse a little bit. One of the things that's helped me have my career is that there's not a ton of money in mountain biking where you could pay people to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it has been helpful that I'm interested and I enjoyed doing a lot of that stuff. But then I feel like it does help hold me back as far as scaling. So one of the things that I've started doing is the Trail Boss Academy in the last couple of years, and I have hired on some other coaches and stuff like that to try to help me scale that business, make it a little bit bigger, be able to reach more riders, because I've started to realize like it can't just be me all the time. But if it's a lot of my fundamentals that they're teaching or my philosophy or just the brand, it could help me create jobs for my friends and help get more people high quality coaching and stuff like that. So I've started passing off some stuff with that. I do hand off some video editing stuff once in a while, but I do have a tendency to try to do a lot of that myself. Obviously not filming. Like, filming is usually my friends, and that's where I'm a little bit different than some other YouTubers. A lot of other YouTubers are real intent on collaborating with other popular YouTubers, and I just invite my friends. Like, I don't care if you're a popular YouTuber. Like, if Mike Stewart wants to be in a video and you've never YouTube before, like, I don't care. You're my buddy. You're in my video. And shooting it together.
Yeah.
So I try to get people to help me with that, but I still do a lot of stuff on my own, and it makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, especially kind of like what we were talking about the balance, and you're gone, you're traveling a lot, and you're riding your bike all the time, and then you've created all this content, and now it's like just sitting there, right? You got to compile it and put it together. You try to do all
Right.
that on the road while you're traveling, or does that sometimes
You don't do that while you're driving, do you?
No, I don't do it. No. I'll try to edit some stuff on the road.
Yeah,
And I spend a lot of time sitting on the couch at night editing.
right.
So not during the day, like, kind of, I'll spend a lot of time on the couch, not super paying attention, sorting stuff out. And then, like, probably something that would take me 2 hours if I really focus might take me 3 nights on the couch. I just kind of mess around and get it. But then I'll really buckle down for like 2 hours and sort through that. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like getting it roughed in.
Yeah.
If I just sat there and just focus, I could probably do it in a certain amount of time, but I'll probably take three times as much on the front end to just get it close, and then I dial it in on the end. But
Got it.
I have been thinking about trying to find a video editor or get an intern or something over the summer.
Yeah. Yeah. You got kids in college. I mean, they've got to have friends that might be looking for, building a
Yeah, and
resume
like,
or something, right?
yeah, and I do have a tendency to try to do everything myself, but there are people that could edit a video way better than I can. So, I could do so much, but I'm sure there's probably some 12-year-old kid that could edit a video 10 times better than I could.
Yeah, for sure.
So elaborate on the Trail Boss Academy. What's how does this come about? Where do you do them? What's the objective? That type of thing. Because you said getting people on bikes is what I heard.
Yeah, so Trail Boss Academy came from, all this stuff. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would have said I didn't really have an interest in coaching. And then I start making YouTube videos. The premise of the YouTube video is writing technical stuff. Then you start getting a lot of questions like, I saw you do that in your video. How do you do that? So then all this stuff is very organic, Dave. I wish I could tell you that I came up with a big master plan 30 years ago, but I definitely didn't. So then you start making videos, doing stuff. Guys like yourself or Mike might watch it and go, that seems cool. How do I do that? So then next thing you know, you make a how-to video, and then the how-to videos do really well and they're fun to make. And I always did those mountain bike trials demos like I did at your shop. I love interacting with people and engaging, and people started asking you if you do private coaching or whatever. So then I spent a lot of time figuring out how, from the how-tos and stuff, I put a lot of time and effort into figuring out how to communicate that stuff to people. And one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you're mountain bike coaching. The ironic part about it is that I went to college prior to all this, and my degree was in movement and sports studies, and it had an emphasis on business sports management. So for the first 3/4 of my career, I always played up the sports management, sports marketing angle. I was always the mountain biker who, I would always just tell people, yeah, I'm my own agent. I have a degree in sports management, sports marketing, whatever. And that suited me kind of well. And I always kind of took a little bit of pride. Like, I went to college, I spent 4 years there, but hey, I'm using my degree. Like, when I put together proposals and I do all this stuff, like, I have a degree. The funny thing is, it never even dawned on me how much kinesiology and biomechanical classes, like, I just kind of forgot. And mountain bike trials is all about technique. And I've always had a very keen eye, and I've always been interested in like how these movements happen and what you need to do to perform certain things on your bike. So it wasn't until 2 years ago when I did a clinic for somebody else that they wrote a bio, and they're like, we have this coach coming in and he has a degree in movement and sport studies. And I was like, shit, I never even realized I'm still using my degree.
Right.
You know? And I think that really does have an impact, because I do really pay attention into what is going on in order to make things happen. So the coaching thing, I was just doing a little knocking around doing, private coaching here and there. And 2 years ago, I decided to start Trail Bus Academy and just make it a little bit more structured. And it was myself and my friend Lance. And now I've added on another rider from California, Max Mitchell. So we can cover different parts of the country, and we do, everything from individual coaching, which is super fun, to group classes. The group classes typically tend to be intermediate and advanced. And then if somebody's like real beginner, or if somebody's real advanced, I try to keep that as a one-on-one. Because with intermediate coaching and stuff like that, it's stuff that you can do in mass. Like you could talk about a technique you could observe in a really safe environment. When you're coaching intermediate people, the fundamental stuff, there's not a ton of risk involved, knock on wood. When you get into more advanced stuff, then it's those same techniques, but it's just adding risk. So I don't want to do that in like a large group. Then you have like 10 guys trying to do a 10-foot drop, and you're just crossing your fingers the whole time. I'd rather do that one-on-one. The intermediate stuff, it's the same exact skill, but nobody should get really hurt doing that. Like it's lower risk stuff. And so I love it. I love breaking down, figuring out how to communicate to different people. Everybody hears things differently. So that's always kind of neat, trying to figure out how to break through to somebody. And then, as you all know, like when you've been riding as long as we have, it's hard to get any type of, gain, big gain. When I first started riding, you could go out and, today I'm bunny hopping 12 inches. Tomorrow I did 14, and the next day 16. I did the Strava time faster. Like it's easy to get those big gains. And when you've been riding as long as we have, and if you're as old as we have, you're just trying to hang on to those gains.
Yes.
But it's hard to get those big eureka moments, like, wow, I really learned something new. But when you work with a rider and you see that light bulb go off in their head, it's as rewarding for me as the first time I learned to bunny hop or do a drop or whatever. Okay. So it's kind of cool. Like you're living vicariously through them. And the cool part is most of the people that I coach they're 35 to 55-year-old men and women, so they're not necessarily kids. They're men and women that genuinely want to learn. And it's just super cool to watch them get so stoked.
Right.
Yeah. Well, listen, I feel like with the career you've had, we could go on all day with different stories and different angles that we didn't even talk about, the world record bunny hop, but maybe another time. I know you've got a schedule, and as do we got to put on our work hats and get on with our jobs. But thank you so much for joining us. Before we let you go, we usually do this little pop culture thing.
Before we do it, Mike,
all right.
I just know I want to thank you. I mean, I kind of like, I don't know, I've always done a lot of charity stuff, right? But as of late, like I don't have the urge to get on a bike and race. If I'm getting on the bike, I want to do something and kind of give back, right? So I'm always riding for the benefit of some charity. A lot of times anyways. Sometimes it's for my own mental health, right? But I just want to commend you for this canned aid that you're doing, and even the clinics. While it's part of your business, you just hit the nail on the head. You're seeing the reward of the joy that it's given people. So just a shout out for giving back. I think we're incredibly fortunate to be able to do something that we love, and it gives back. So props on that. So
awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Both Dave and I have done rides for charity and trying to raise money for this or that situations. And yeah, that's why I brought it up in the podcast, because I wanted to shine a light on Candide and all the work you've done. 10,000 bikes. That's an incredible milestone.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
I think we're going to hit that next. I think we're on track to hit that coincidentally next week in Bentonville.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There's a place to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good place to do it.
And we do have to do the pop culture, but I think you got to give a shout out to any other sponsors you want to give a shout out to.
Obviously Reeb, which is a bike company that was started by Oscar Blues, but we're independent now. That's been going awesome. We could get into a whole nother podcast with that one.
Yeah.
It's been really rewarding working with those guys, going from the world's largest bike manufacturer to one of the smallest possible, and seeing how much that brand has changed over the past 5 years. Whether it's marketing, just the brand growing, and then different manufacturing techniques that allow us to make bikes at a small scale, but that are on par with, I'd say any other technology that you're going to use. Our bikes are on par with that. The craftsmanship is awesome. So working with that brand has been awesome. The Candide stuff is super fun and rewarding. And I'm definitely at a point in my career too where I'm taking some more risks with partners too. Like I started riding for Tasco this year after riding for, when I rode for Giant forever, you don't know whether you're moving the needle or not. It's impossible to see if you have an ROI, with a company that big.
Yeah.
Are you selling more bikes or aren't you? But when I started riding for Reeb, you're really performing without a net. Like we were selling about 120 bikes, I think, a year when I first started. If you don't bump up that number, it's pretty freaking obvious.
Yeah.
And over the past 5 years, we've seen that has happened. And we pretty much speak to every customer that buys a Reeb in one way or another, whether it's an Instagram message or a phone call or something. Like we're talking to our customers. And you hear your name come up or that they saw you riding it or whatever. You start to see that you're moving the needle. When I first started riding for Reeb 5 years ago, I rode for Pearl Izumi because I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I had the capability to do that. So I still needed that huge anchor brand,
Yeah.
And then once I started to see that with Reeb, like, yeah, people do care what you're doing. And if you genuinely interact with them, like you can, and you believe in the product, you can influence them to buy that stuff. So the opportunity came up this past year to change clothing brands. And I felt like Tasco was another Reeb scenario. It's it's all riders. It's owned by a rider. I could have a ton of say, and input with some of those other big brands. Like I never designed a Pearl Izumi product or a Giant product. And with Reeb, I can either say to change a thing or at least argue with them to change it. And same thing with Tasco. So I'm taking some of those chances now, and it's been pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can imagine that's really satisfying when you can impact one of these companies in a way where it's like, wow, look what's happening here, and I know with Reeb, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're their only athlete, right? Or
we have other ambassadors and stuff like that. But,
okay.
We have other ambassadors, but not, to the same capacity or whatever.
Got it.
I was the first guy, and then now we're adding a little bit of a squad just because we've seen that the best way we've done, ads on Pink Bike or whatever, but for us, the best way to sell our product is just let people see it. When they can see it, touch it, feel it, it's, they're going to be stoked on it, or spend time with somebody that's on one and create a cool memory or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you're not going to outdo the marketing budgets of some of these bigger brands. So for us, it's about getting the product in front of people and kind of sharing that stoke.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, let's do the quiz and then we'll get you out of here so you can get on with your day. But
okay.
All right. So there's no wrong answer here. We've been talking a lot about bikes and charity, but this is complete silliness and just have fun with it. So
Spitfire.
Yeah. Hip hop or rock and roll?
Probably rock and roll.
All right. Country or blues?
It's like that's a real toss up.
That's a tough one.
I say hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. How about country or blues?
Oh, probably country over blues. Probably, yeah. I'm not a big fan of either, but I'd probably choose country.
All right. Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Beatles,
AC/DC or U2?
U2.
Okay.
He's
Tupac.
passing judgment right now. You know that.
No,
That
no,
delay meant he was passing judgment.
I like U2. That was
Yeah.
the first one we're in agreement on. That's why he had a little pause. All right.
Nice.
How about Tupac or Biggie?
Biggie for sure.
Of course,
East
right?
Coast.
East Coast.
East Coast, yeah.
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 All right. I'll let you have that one. All right. And then how about Bruno Mars or Taylor Swift?
T Swift for sure.
Okay, good. Romantic comedy or action?
I have a 19-year-old daughter who is like listening to all that stuff at the peak of it.
Yeah.
So I pass it off that my phone's loaded up with Taylor Swift because of Katie.
Uh-huh.
But I'd be lying if I said I didn't belt out some stuff when I'm driving in the car alone and I come to Time Shuffle.
The guilty pleasure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We all have it. Yeah, she's great. They're both great, really. I mean, just
Yeah,
not our thing. But okay. So romantic comedy or action?
rom-com.
Yep. Okay. Die Hard or Shawshank?
Shawshank.
Yep. Talladega Nights or Hangover?
Talladega Nights.
Yeah, baby Jesus. De Niro or Denzel?
Probably Denzel.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, Holly Berry or Jennifer Aniston?
Halle Berry.
Yeah.
All the way.
She's an all-timer. Okay, baseball or basketball?
Basketball.
Yeah, I know you're a big sports fan. Football or soccer? I know the answer to this one.
Yeah, football. Football all day. Football, then basketball, then baseball, then soccer.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Football is not like.
Sorry about your Warriors.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started. That's all right. They're gonna reload and we'll be back. All right. Offense or defense?
Offense.
Yeah. Okay. Steph Curry or LeBron? Do you even care?
No, I like LeBron.
Oh,
He's getting a little. I don't know. He's a little bit of a self-talker now, but I still like LeBron.
All right. Yep. Okay. And then 60s or 80s?
80s.
Okay. So give me your favorite car of the 80s.
My favorite car of the 80s,
Mhm.
probably like the Mustang GT.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
The Mustang GT was a big East Coast thing, or a Camaro.
Uh-huh. I remember Vanilla Ice in the video. Yep. Yeah.
Or like a Trans Am.
Yeah.
Those are sick.
With the eagle on the hood.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My father-in-law worked for GM back in the day, and he had like you're talking about the pedophile van. He had a panel van, and he put the Trans Am Eagle graphic on the back two doors. Cut it down the middle.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So
nice.
Maybe, yeah. Next level pedo van. All right, last one. Hot or cold?
Probably rather be cold than hot.
Yeah, that's why you're on the East Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big dude. Like I'm a big mammal. I'm 6'4", 220. Like
yeah.
I'm not like a sweater, but as soon as I exercise, I get hot. So when it's hot, like I don't perform well. Whenever I was doing trials, whenever I was racing, like I heat up fast. So I prefer cold.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of the pop quiz. We just, we like to kind of take a read on this other stuff that we don't talk about, just to kind of give everybody an idea where your head's at, what you love. But awesome. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. It's been our honor to have you on, and a real pleasure working with you over the years. And just something I value your friendship very much. And so thank you for making the time of doing this.
Yeah, I second that emotion.
Thank you for having
Jeff.
me.
Yeah.
If you guys ever want to continue talking bikes,
yes,
we can do volume 2 sometime.
Okay, I will take you up on that. Awesome. So our podcast partner Bo, he creates some social media content, so we'll get some of that stuff over to you. If you could promote it on your stuff, that'd be great. And awesome. we just really appreciate having you, Jeff. And we'll call it good. Thanks everybody for listening.
Good luck with the move and good luck with everything else, Jeff. That's awesome. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Take care, buddy.
All right. Bye.
All right. So I ended but yeah, thanks, man. And
Cool.
sorry we ran a little bit late. I sent a
Oh,
chat.
no, it's all good.
Oh, okay. I sent a chat at
Yeah,
7:30. I was just like, but we were rolling there, so had to finish the thought.
Yeah.
But,
No, it's all good.
yeah, I know you're super busy, so it means a lot to us. Appreciate you taking the time, buddy. All right.
I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Safe travels,
right.
man.
See you
Okay,
guys.
Cool, man.
yeah, we'll see
Gotta
you.
jump.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, bye.